ever feel like you're living with a tiny tornado who tests every limit? Join me today as we discover some expert strategies for managing those sasshole moments with that love and consistency that you want, and rediscover the joy, and I promise there can be joy in parenting. Welcome back, my friends, to episode number 170, Parenting Sassholes, Taming and Challenging Behavior with Love and Limit. Ever since I heard that term, I was like, I've got to do a podcast episode with that word because number one, it's hilarious and I love to laugh. And number two, it's totally true. Man, we've got some sassholes up in my home and I don't like it. And honestly, sometimes I'm a sasshole myself. So let's talk about sassholes. Hopefully, you don't have your kids around and you just don't love that I keep saying that, but I wanted to say it at least a few times. But before we hop in, I do want to remind you of our amazing courses that are now available for both starting an online business and a podcast that can meet the flexibility of your family needs, and mental health and wellness courses. Now, we will be releasing more business courses and mental health and wellness courses throughout this coming year of 2025, but they do apply to this podcast. I swear, I promise you, they're not just random courses I'm throwing out there. But I discovered that a lot of people were reaching out and asking me, how are you doing this? How are you becoming a podcaster, a business owner, creating that flexible income? And also, they want to know about the mental health and wellness component, obviously, because that is my specialty. So there are both courses. If you are wanting to take your life to the next level with fulfillment, especially in the realms of personal growth and fulfillment, and also fulfillment when it comes to starting a business. That's those two avenues. So I have the business courses and I have the mental health and wellness courses. So check those out on fulfillmenttherapy.org and you can see what we're offering. There's videos, there's a breakdown of what it all is. All right, now back to this episode on our little sassholes. I have been struggling lately. I have hit a wall. I have one child that is in a very difficult stage. And I think because he's my last one, I have less patience. Actually, I don't think that's the case. I know that's the case. I have more things to focus on than ever before because I have more children. There's more that I'm juggling, not necessarily things that I cannot handle. My attention is diverted many ways, more than just having one child or two children. And it can be hard to navigate that and to have the bandwidth to handle that when they're being mouthy and fighting and whatever those things are that come up. It's just hard to handle it effectively, even if you sometimes have the tools or the knowledge. You just might not have the energy. So, how do we navigate that? We're going to talk about that today. So, again, what is sasshole behavior? This is when your kids are constantly pushing your boundaries. They're being disrespectful, or maybe they're just not listening. These things can make you feel frustrated and overwhelmed. But, my friends, you are not alone. This happens to me probably daily. But did you know that about 10 to 20% of kids show these challenging behaviors that really impact family life? And this can become a major wedge in creating that peace at home, that increased fulfillment that you're seeking for. This is a common struggle. So I thought if I'm struggling this, I feel like everybody might need a little brush up on some of these skills. Hopefully, I'm not alone in this. I'm pretty certain that I'm not. But when I went and looked at some of these skills, I came up with a list of top 5 tips for managing that difficult behavior. The first one is establish clear boundaries and consequences. We recently went to this workshop with my oldest daughter, my husband and I, and we were reminded about that. No matter what age your child is, and our oldest daughter is 17, it's very important to implement both those clear boundaries. And then with that, the consequence and the reward for something. It doesn't have to be this big, elaborate thing, but in that workshop, they're like, what's the one thing that would really change everything if it were in place? The one thing you want them to do more than anything that would really help all the dynamics that you're talking about here. I'm like, oh, okay. It would probably be this one thing, or maybe these 2 or 3 things. And then set clear rules or guidelines around that are age appropriate and stick to those consequences. Like they said, for that one thing that you come up with, create a reward and a consequence. And you can even collaborate depending on the age and stage of your child with them. It doesn't have to be this, you are so in trouble, but it's just, okay, we didn't follow through with that. We'll try again next time. No worries. And there's still that natural consequence and there's still that reward in place for things like this. So we don't both grow in resentment. Dr. Kevin Leman says, rules without relationship lead to rebellion. And I talk about this with my oldest child a lot. Like, if they don't feel loved, if they don't feel connected to you, they're going to be resentful. So really hone in on improving that relationship before you're just talking about all of their faults, all the negatives. Another thing you can do, number 2, is practice positive reinforcement. So make it a point to catch your child doing something right and then praise them for it. Aim for 5 positive interactions for every negative one. And I have a story for this as well. Like, this is something I talk about a lot. So that golden ratio. One side note, I will say, I guess I'm going to say 6 of them because this applies to it. The other day, I was just feeling so tired. I had been working quite a bit and just feeling gray and down with the weather. And I decided, okay, it's a Saturday. I'm going to go rock climbing. I'm going to go swimming with my family. And then I'm going to get out for a while afterwards. I'm not going to come home during daylight hours because my office is at home and I'm always at home. So I did that. And when I came home when it was dark, I felt so giddy and hyper and fun. Like I'd done all the things for self-care. And then it was so natural how easy it was to have that ratio with my little Sasshole. And I was constantly pointing out the things I appreciated with him and just so much more loving and tender naturally instead of trying to white knuckle. It's really important that some of those other things are in place because then you're not so reactive. So keep that in mind. The third one is use calm, consistent communication. So keep your cool when you're dealing with that misbehavior because kids often mirror our emotional state. I love Dr. Dan Siegel. He has a lot of amazing things, but he said, where attention goes, neural firing flows and neural connection grows. So what he means there is our brain, we strengthen those highways that are already there of those thoughts. So if we're really reinforcing those negative things almost with that negative attention, that will just keep growing. But if we are drawing that attention to the things that we want, the positive things, then those highways, those neural highways will grow. So keep that in mind. Number 4 is something that I am not the greatest at, but it's implement a time in instead of a time out. So stay with your child when they have those emotional moments where you can support them and teach them how to better manage their emotions. And that's hard for me when I'm also threadbare. So that self-care will come in handy in those moments when you are not so depleted. And then the 5th one is model the behavior you want to see. My friends, you know this. Your actions speak so much louder than your words. So show them how you want them to behave by managing your own emotions and reactions. Are we showing with our nonverbals that we are really impatient or irritated, or maybe that they're a burden, or they are just so overwhelming and irritating to you? Or are we showing them that we love them and we're patient with them and this is a normal part of development and that it's okay to have a variety of feelings and we can navigate those feelings in appropriate ways? Now let's talk about dealing with certain situations, some specific situations. How can we handle the disrespect, for example? It always goes back to using I statements. So teach them how to express their feelings and model that for them as well. So set those clear expectations for that respectful communication and then reinforce those boundaries. So apply those natural consequences consistently, my friends, so they understand the impact of their choices. Don't be a doormat. Nobody likes a doormat. You don't even like a doormat. You don't like yourself when you do that. I will admit that I do this myself sometimes. Also, improve your listening skills. Do you practice active listening with your child? And do you reflect back what you've heard? I don't do this as well with my children as I do adults, for sure, or clients. There's no shame. We're always trying to improve that. But I find is especially difficult for those younger ages when they talk a lot and most of it doesn't feel very important. But it feels so rewarding to them when you are listening and when you reflect back. And then what about reducing sibling conflict? So teach conflict resolution and guide them through finding solutions together. Again, this takes patience. It's so hard to do sometimes when they're constantly squabbling, but you can teach those simple skills and be present with them. My friends, it really is tough when you're struggling to even like your child during these difficult times. This is normal. It is hard. I can't emphasize that enough. We can focus on their positive qualities, though, and create those enjoyable interactions, or at least a little bit more than maybe yesterday. Dr. Ross Greene says kids do well if they can approach that behavior with empathy. Maybe their stage of development, like they're just not going to be as buttoned up as maybe your older kids are. Like there's going to be more, or I should say, less emotional regulation. And that's okay. That's normal. Again, don't forget about that self care because that's going to help you show up as your best self when your kid is just being completely ridiculous and they need you to be the adult. How do we break that negative cycle? You can identify what triggers these behaviors and you can track them in a journal. Maybe just very briefly on your phone. Like he loses his mind in these situations. And what does this teach me? So you can practice responding thoughtfully instead of reacting emotionally by exploring what those triggers might be. And you can set aside that time for those positive interactions, like those special times. Like I try to take my kids on dates regularly. Maybe just check in with them. Hey, how's your day? What's going on? I noticed that you're reacting a little bit more or being a little less patient than usual. Is something going on? Did something happen at school today? Something like that. Now, for you, this might be the same for me. Like maybe it is your youngest child. Like with our youngest, they can often get more lenient treatment. And I know my older kids like to point this out all the time. Mom, it's not fair. And this can lead to entitlement issues later on. So it is important to listen to our older kids and recognize, hey, it's important that we treat all of the kids as equally as we can and then make course corrections when we don't. So keep those expectations and those consequences consistent for all of your kids, no matter what their birth order is. All right, just very briefly, just a couple more simple practical techniques that you can use to manage those sassholes. I know I had to say it one more time. I might throw in another one. You can use a gentle touch to guide your younger kids when your words aren't working. That's a really helpful thing that I do in my parenting or don't do sometimes. Like when they're not listening, I need to remember I'm not looking them in the eye. I'm not showing them I'm serious by putting my hand on their shoulder or their back and gently guiding them to their job or gently guiding them up to their room. Like that does require more work for us, but it communicates that you're serious and you're not a passive parent. So again, I just mentioned that, but making that eye contact to increase that connection and make sure that they are listening as well. And then another quick one, just focus on giving more attention to those positive behaviors instead of those negative ones. All right, I just threw a bit of information at you, so I'm going to recap that a little bit. You can establish those clear boundaries. You can practice that positive reinforcement and communicate calmly. And then you can use time ins and model that good behavior. These changes take time, but consistency is the key. As always, it's those small, tiny micro adjustments that add up over time. So please be patient with yourself and your little sassholes. See, I added it one more time. All right, my friends, don't forget to check out our courses, our blog, our podcast episodes. They are all available to you in the show notes. So check those out and take life to the next level. Take your fulfillment to the next level. Please share this podcast episode and others with friends. Please leave a review if you haven't already. This is how we make a bigger impact and change the world. As silly as that sounds, it really does matter. So thank you for those of you that have left a quick review. It just takes moments, but it does matter so much. So if I haven't said it already, we have passed a while ago now the top 1% podcast globally. So thank you for your support. That's so amazing. That's happened in such a short time because of people like you. So thank you. And I will see you back here in just a few days, my friend. Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, chances are someone else would too. Would you take 30 seconds to share this with a friend who's looking for greater family fulfillment? And while you're sharing, tell me what you think about the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It refuels me when I hear this podcast is helping you, no matter what your house or your hair looks like. I'll meet you back here every Monday and Thursday morning for more episodes. Until then.